Okay, it was less than 5 minutes. Sorry. I don't know why. I always forget that people can watch these in a replay. So even if you're not here watching at this exact moment, you can watch it on a replay. So I hope everyone's having a good weekend. I'm just chilling at home. If you hear screaming children in the background, it's because I have screaming children in the background. So there were some questions about, I posed a question for the group. What is frustrating you about your makeup routine? What are some things? And I kind of want to keep this ongoing. So what's frustrating you? And so far I got questions about oily skin and eyeliner and mascara. So oily skin. So, okay. I suffered from oily skin for a lot of years, and in my mid-40s now, I'm a little bit oily just in my T-zone, but nothing crazy that I can't handle. So if you're in your 20s or 30s, you're still very, very young, and I know oily skin can be a pain in the butt, but you should celebrate your oily skin, because I think if you have oily skin, you just age better. I mean, no, disrespect to our drier skin gals, but I really feel like if you've got oily skin or even have suffered from acne in your past when you were younger, I feel like oily skin people, the skin's thicker, first of all, so you just age a little bit slower and you always look a little bit younger than you really are. So I've been pretty oily. I mean, I started getting oily, I guess, pretty much hitting puberty around 13, 14, and pretty oily all through high school, all through my 20s, and all through, I would say, maybe my mid-30s is kind of when my oil production started slowing down. But I still can get shiny, especially when it's hot outside and really steamy and yucky. And here in Texas, we're very steamy and yucky. So I tend to get a little bit oily. So, okay, so you guys are asking about oily skin. So oily skin and makeup is a little bit of a problem sometimes because, okay, so many people now are using these long wearing matte foundations. They're very, very popular. I see them all over Sephora, all over Ulta. Oh, there's grandma yelling at the kids. All over Sephora, all over Ulta, all in the drugstores. The trend really now is like matte complexions, overly matte complexions, and long wearing liquid foundation and powder formulas. And they're good if you're very, very young and very, very oily. However, I will say anyone maybe 25 and up that's using an overly matte or long wearing foundation, they tend to look very artificial, very flat, and they tend to cake like a lot. So I would say, first of all, if you're oily skinned and you're used to heavy, fuller coverage with these long wearing matte foundations, first of all, okay, you don't necessarily have to go out and buy something completely new or switch to something dewy that you're completely not used to and you're thinking, oh my gosh, like I can't wear this, it's too goopy. What you can do, my biggest thing that I would say is use a very lightweight SPF underneath your foundation. So hopefully you found a lightweight SPF. And if you want to message me or DM me for some recommendations, tell me a little bit about your skin and I'll give you some recommendations. But I do have a sunscreen video, and I'm going to upload another one to you guys so you can see it. But I talk about different sunscreens that I've reviewed. But you want something that's very, very sheer, very, very lightweight. Oily skin does need moisturizer, just like a dry skin does. However, you don't need a very thick one. Your skin needs a light hydration, but it doesn't need a lot of heavy weight. Oily skins just usually lack water. They have an abundance of oil, but they lack water. That's why you can sometimes feel a little bit dry and tight feeling, and that's that dehydration, but also be oily. Or you can have dry patches on your skin or sensitive patches on your skin and still be oily. It's just your skin's basically crying out for water. So, okay, so my point was a lightweight moisturizer underneath your foundation is key, because if you're very oily and you're dehydrated and your skin is lacking and crying out for water, when you put these liquid foundations on your face, they get absorbed by your skin. So basically your skin is kind of sucking up all the emolliency of that foundation, but And then when that happens, what's left behind is just the powdery pigments in the formula, if that makes sense. So that's why you're looking and feeling cakey. So if you do a nice lightweight hydrator underneath your powder foundation or your liquid foundation, that's going to help a lot, because your skin's going to get hydration and nourishment that it needs, and it's not going to try to suck it all up from your liquid, and you're not going to look overly cakey. And plus, everyone needs an SPF when they go out anyway. So if you get a nice lightweight SPF hydrator underneath your foundation, then that's good. So you want to do that. And then there are tons and tons of primers out all over. Primers have been very, very popular. I would say they've exploded in the last 5 years or so on the makeup scene. And I kind of have a love-hate relationship with primers. I think that a lot of the time primers are really unnecessary. I feel like there's so many primers that their main ingredient is silicone. So silicone is something that gives your face like a nice slip. It can fill in pores. It can make the skin look more just like uniform, not bumpy, not textured, not raised. And so many liquid foundations contain silicone anyway, that a lot of times if you're doing a primer with a bunch of silicone and then you're putting a foundation with a bunch of silicone on top, that can also make your makeup slip and slide all around. You're feeling cakey, you're feeling heavy, and your makeup just isn't lasting. And so oily skins, you guys can run into that. So I actually try to say, you know, if you find a foundation that you really like and you can get away with making it last without using a primer underneath, usually that's your best bet, because with oily skins, the more stuff you're layering on underneath your makeup, the more it's going to slip and slide all around. The oil's going to break up all those layers and it's just not going to look nice. More layers is more gunk kind of mixing in with the oil and gunk that your pores are already producing. So I hope this is making sense. So what I would suggest for the oily skin is do a nice lightweight hydrator / SPF under your makeup. Now, instead of those thick silicone primers, I love setting sprays, all kinds of makeup setting sprays. And if you get a good makeup setting spray, you can use that as a primer and as a setter when you're done applying your makeup. So I cleanse, I tone, I moisturize, and then what I would suggest if you're oily skin, spritz your face with a setting spray, and that can be your primer. You know, you kind of want to be at arm's length and just kind of spritz the air, and, you know, some people do like a crisscross motion and then down your T-zone, but just use that setting spray, let that dry down, and then go ahead and apply your makeup. And then when you're done applying your makeup, powder is usually a necessity for oily skin girls. But there's a lot of oily skin girls that don't really like that overly powdered look. They feel like it dulls down their foundation look. Unless you're really, really into the matte look, then, you know, go for it. But too much powder just tends to make you look like you're a cake face anyway. So why do that? So the trick I tell everybody with powder, whether you're dry, whether you're oily, is I like to take a damp beauty sponge. I really don't like powder brushes. I really don't. I feel like most of them, when you've taken the time to apply your foundation, whether it's a cream, whether it's a liquid, whether it's a powder, you've taken the time and you're now doing a light finishing dusting of your powder to set, the bristles can kind of move that makeup around. What's the point of that? You know, sometimes you're kind of creating problems where they don't need to happen. So what I like to tell people, whether they're oily, dry, what have you, okay, take your damp beauty sponge. It's not dripping, it's just damp. You probably were using it to apply your foundation, right? So take that same sponge and dip it into a little bit of your powder, whether it's pressed, whether it's loose, and then just bounce that all over your face, and then, you know, go a little bit more in those areas where you need. And I really do find that it's the combination of the powder with that damp beauty sponge, you avoid that whole caked on look. It is a makeup artist's secret. It's something I used to do on brides that would give them the longevity without that powdery cake face look. When you're done with that, when you have applied as much powder as you think you need, and most people need less than what they think. We're all sometimes a little heavy hand with the powder. Then you give your face a final spritz with the setting spray. Now, as you may know, I am a rep for Mascara Beauty. I really love and adore their setting spray. It smells divine, and it can be used as a primer and as a finishing spray to set the makeup. And there's tons of them. You can pretty much get them anywhere. Some are definitely better than others. A little bit of denatured alcohol or alcohol denat in the formula is really not usually that big of a deal. There are a lot of people that freak out and cringe. Oh, well, this makeup setting spray has alcohol in it. It's terrible. You know, by that time, you've got your moisturizer on, you've got your foundation, you've got your powder. You're not spraying with so much alcohol on your face that you're going to dry your skin out from that. It's like a finishing touch. And even if you're using it as a primer, you've got your hydration on, and then you're doing a light spritz. You're not like sitting there going, you know, like where your face is dripping, for goodness sake. So yeah, some people just go a little crazy about that, and that's kind of unnecessary. So what else can I think of to tell you guys? So yeah, so that's just kind of like my basic recommendation for you if you're oily skinned, is just use less makeup than you think you would need, because a lot of us tend to over apply foundation, and really you don't need usually as much as you think. And using really heavy, thick silicone primers, things like that. So you've got those thick silicone primers, you've got a layer of thick, heavy makeup, plus your skin is overproducing oil. So that's just a recipe for a gunky mess. If you use less foundation, if you don't use a silicone-y thick primer underneath your foundation, you've eliminated a lot of layers right there. So I hope that's helpful. I personally use and adore cream makeup. I've been talking about cream makeup now to you guys for a while, and I think I should do a tutorial as if I was trying to get the longevity of an oily skinned person, because I feel like if you kind of see it in action, you'll relate better. But cream makeup doesn't seep into pores the way that liquid does. It doesn't dry down the way that liquids do. Cream set when you set them, and because they float on top of the skin, because they don't absorb into the skin, and because it's such a high concentration of pigment, you actually end up using a lot less. So when you do a very small amount of cream all over an oily complexion and you set it properly, you will find that you look and feel less oily. Now, it will be a little bit of an adjustment in the very beginning if you're very oily or oily skinned and you use a cream, because it's not going to be a texture that you're used to, and it's not going to be a look that you're used to. Most of you are used to using way too much makeup and having it look very thick. So creams are really great for all skin types, and especially for oily skins, because you use less and you look like you have a more natural skin-like finish. So I hope that helps with oily skin questions and makeup and helping your makeup last. And let me see, the other question that I got was about eyeliner and mascara and having that last a long time. Now with eyeliner, I will say that if you're having a problem with your eyeliner running and smudging and your mascaras running and smudging, okay, first, to address the eyeliner question. With eyeliners, I personally now have only used gel eyeliners, you know, like those little gels that you get in pots that are long wearing. I use those, or I use those type of liquid felt tip type of eyeliners that almost are like a little brush that you brush on and dry and set. I find that if you're finding problems with your eyeliner lasting, you just need to switch formulas. Pencils tend to have a lot of wax in them, and especially if your eyes are running a lot, or if you have allergies or nothing is working, usually those pencils, they usually just have to go. Pencils are no bueno. Personally, my favorite gel eyeliner of all time are the Bobbi Brown gel eyeliners. Those are beautiful. They last forever, and once they are there, they stay put. They do not budge. You do need to get yourself a good eyeliner brush, and some like them where they're a little bit slanted, some like them when they're a fine tip. get whatever type of brush you would prefer, whether it's going to be one that is drawing a really thin line or one that's a thicker line. But you will need that as a companion to those. But it's well worth it. And my personal favorite eyeliner pen of the last 2 years is called the Cat Eye pen by Burberry. I have to get it on Nordstrom.com because I don't have a Burberry counter anywhere near me. So I use their dark brown. It's kind of like a dark brown combination between a black and a brown. And it's a very, very flexible tip. It almost is like a little mini brush. And I just brush that on when I'm wearing eyeliner. And once that's set, that stays and it doesn't move. So you will need a dedicated eye makeup remover to remove those types of eyeliners. But lots of us now have cleansing balms, cleansing milks, eye makeup removers that we use, so that usually will work just fine. As far as mascaras go, the advice that a lot of people give others that, or makeup artists and estheticians will say, if clients are saying things like, oh, my mascara doesn't stay, it always runs, they'll say, oh, just wear a waterproof mascara. And yes, that's true. And yes, it's good if your mascara doesn't last. However, the problem is waterproof mascara used every day, all the time, is not a good idea. It's not good for your eyelashes. It's difficult to remove. You have to get an oil-based or a waterproof eye makeup remover to take it off. And more often than not, usually everyone is really bad and they tug and tug and tug at their eyes until they get that crapola off. And it's just... It's really difficult to remove. I mean, waterproof mascara can be difficult to remove. And if you're using it every single day, all the time, that stuff can get on your lashes like cement. It's hard to get off. So it's okay if you're going to be doing a water activity, or you're going to be, at a wedding and you don't want to smudge, or, you're going to be going somewhere and crying. Okay, well, then wear your waterproof by all means. But for every day, no. So... mascara is it's a personal thing. I mean, it's annoying, but you just have to experiment. You just have to experiment. And for me, I've found that the easiest place to experiment is a drugstore. Because if you start experimenting with mascaras that you have to buy, say at Sephora or a department store or something, you're going to go broke really, really quick. I mean, there are mascaras out there that are like $30. And, unless you're lucky enough to find a $30 mascara that's really good, and then that's the one that works for you, great. But what if you buy a bunch of $30 mascaras and they all suck and they're all running on you, and then you've wasted, $100? So I would say, in my experience, L'Oreal makes really great mascaras that don't budge typically, and also CoverGirl, usually their Lash Blast collection is usually pretty good, doesn't smudge too much. I mean, I use DIY eyelash extensions from Lashify, so I really don't mess with mascara anymore. I haven't for the last 3 months, and I found that my eyes aren't as irritated, and I just think I was one of those people that was really sensitive to mascara. I was kind of like my friend Gina, who posed that question. My eyes were watering, and I kind of I always had black under there, and not in a good way, not in like a smudged eye makeup look, but in a just like go wash your face kind of look. So, but if you don't want to do lash extensions and your mascara is giving you problems, another trick that you can do is, those eyeshadow primers that you put on your lids prior to eyeshadow application? Well, you can put a tiny amount of it underneath your lower lash line. And some people say and swear by that trick. I've tried it a couple times, but with my particular eyelash primer, I found that it made the skin under my eyes a little dry looking. So I would suggest being very, very sparing with that trick if you're going to try it. But some people swear by that trick. So a little bit of eyeshadow primer, like really, really warm it up, thin it, shear it out between your fingers, and then kind of just pat underneath that lower lash line. And some people have said that that works for them. And curl your eyelashes, you guys. Curl your eyelashes and then put a very light coat and then another very light coat. If you start clumping it up and putting on a lot, then that's going to smudge more too, right? It's just common sense. And if you curl your eyelashes, they already kind of look a little bolder and brighter and bigger. So you can kind of brush on less mascara, if that makes sense. So that would be my recommendation. I feel like I'm just babbling on, but you have to sometimes. So that is that with the oily skin makeup tips and the eyeliner mascara longevity question. And I want you guys to go on this group page, and underneath that question that I posted, what's bothering you about your makeup, write down what you're struggling with, and then I'll come on here, pop on here, and make a video. And I should show you guys how cream is with oily skin. I need to find an oily skin person to put on camera. I'll find somebody. But yeah, so hopefully that answers some of your questions. I'm so happy to be here and talk to you guys, and hopefully you'll get to catch this in the replay. Hope you're having a good weekend, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.